मानव जन्म सत्संगे दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे कराये दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे कराये भव
Jaya Jaya. Krishna Krishna Hare
Very beautiful. Hare Krishna. So we are once again very fortunate to have Maharaj with us this afternoon. And on behalf of Nitesh Gupta and Shamsudri Mataji, we'd like to welcome all the devotees. Matajis, beta, all Matajis here? All the Matajis come here. Sorry, ready? Maharaj, yes. Please come everyone. So today is a very special day. Today is a Sri Society's appearance day. A very, very important day for Gauri Vaishnava, and especially the devotee of ISKCON. So yesterday we had a wonderful festival. Virajji, Mahotsav, Puja, Tirobhav, Maharaj. And we're so fortunate that on this wonderful occasion, Maharaj is here with us. So today we'll hear about the stories from Maharaj. Then after the class, we'll have the Swami, right? And then there will be a prasad, feast for everyone. Till 12 we are fasting, right? Yes. So let's welcome Maharaj by taking the shelter of the day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody grateful to Shamsudri Mataji, that family for giving us the opportunity to assemble together and hear from us.
Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chatsurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I will recount some of my memories. I came to the Krishna Convent in London, and at that time in London, we were renting a house in central London, just beside the British Museum. It's not very far away from where they are at present. If you go to the Soho Street Centre there in London, it's like 10 minutes walk from there. You have to walk from Soho Street, you walk along Oxford Street, across Tottenham Court Road, and then into Bloomsbury. And our place was a Bury Place. It was a rented house, number 7 Bury Place. We had about 6 floors, but each of the floor area wasn't very big. But somehow the devotees, the devotees who had come from America, the 3 householder couples were very they had a lot of initiative, and the Shyam Sundar Prabhu had brought even wood with him in preparation for the temple. He brought all this wood, red wood from America, he brought it all to England, and he used it to put on the inside of the temple building there in London. I remember my first impression of going into the temple. It was like going into Noah's Ark. It was something like Noah's Ark, you know. It was just all wood, you know, this wooden structure everywhere. But then when I saw the deities, it was very powerful. They were very fortunate that the devotees had acquired the deities of Radha, Landaneshwara, and that was a whole wonderful pastime. How Srila Prabhupada had brought these deities. That Prabhupada was anxious for the devotees to get a place there in London and to have their own center. The devotees had been staying there for more than a year without anything. At one point, they had all stayed at John Lennon's. John Lennon had an estate. I don't know, do you remember him? The late Mr. John Lennon. He died in 1980, not long after Prabhupada departed. Anyway, they were out there in John Lennon's estate, and Prabhupada didn't like it there because John Lennon was involved with drugs, and it was terrible. So Prabhupada wanted that they could get a place in London, and somehow they managed to find this place in central London. Of course, people who rented it had no idea what we were going to do with the building. But anyway, they got their rent, and the Authorities Commission. So Mukunda, at that time he was Mukunda Prabhu, now he's Mukunda Goswami. He drew up the constitution for the society. And was presented to the charitable organization. And that same registration was later on used in India. So all of the centers in India were registered from the constitution, which was drawn up there in London. And we used that registration to register the society. And so being a registered society, we had tax exemption. So that was quite an achievement, and Prabhupada was pleased about that. And we had the center that Prabhupada wanted deities, so they found Indian society had brought the deities, they shipped Radha and Krishna deities from India, but somehow there was some damage, little damage, very minor damage to Indian society. We're not going to install it. So Prabhupada went there and he saw the deities and they were very, very beautiful. And Prabhupada said, yeah, okay, we'll take them. And then so they picked up the deities right on the spot and installed the deities in at the opening of the temple. They installed the deities. So that was quite an historic event. At that time, there was no other Hindu temple in London. There were no deities. Nobody had any deities anywhere. It was something which, Prabhupada had masterminded. And you could see also it was arranged by Krishna. That Krishna arranged that these deities would come. And Prabhupada said Radharani arranged to have a little fracture in her finger just so that she could be installed in our temple. So the deities were installed there. It was very beautiful. And the devotees were later, after just like some months after they'd opened the temple, then Srila Prabhupada called those householders who had gone there to England. Prabhupada called them to go to India. That Srila Prabhupada wanted to begin the preaching in India because there was nothing going on in India at that time. So Prabhupada took Shamsundar and Malati and Yamuna and Guru Das. They went off to India. And Mukunda was left there in London. And his wife wasn't happy there. She wanted to go back to America. So later on, he also went back to America. So the temple was left in the hands of the very few people, English devotees who joined the movement. And they were all totally new in Krishna consciousness. So that was about 1969. I joined 1971. There were about 20 devotees there at the time. And the deities were being taken care of by a French lady. The French lady was a woman named Mundakini, not very old, she was in her 20s. And she was taking care of the deities. And she didn't really have any experience. I remember the Radha Mandanishwara, they were changed once a week. That's not our temple standard, really. It's supposed to change every day, but at that time, because it was new temple, and she was the only one taking care of the deities. And so the Radha Krishna deities were changed once a week, and the Jagannath deities were changed once a month. The Jagannath deities were situated above Radha. So it was very exciting when they changed the deities. We were all very happy going to see the deities in their new clothes, in the dress. when they changed the deities. The temple, and it really wasn't easy for them. They were maintaining also the offerings, the offerings which were required to be done. I remember sometimes that in order to purchase fruits, we'd have a fruit offering every afternoon. They don't have really much fruit, which is local grown. So in order to get money to purchase fruits for the deities, we had to think how to sell a book. Our only income was from books. And they'd ship some book. That was the book. To sell a book, and then we get some money to go and buy fruit, to make the fruit offering for the deities. So we were literally living from day to day. in the evening for the arti. And then the devotees told me, they said, you can stay overnight if you like. And we have a morning program as well. I was coming every evening and taking part in the arti and hearing the Bhakti program. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I don't usually get up so early in the morning, They were saying 4 o'clock. I thought, wow. Something unusual. I gave it a try, and I was living at the temple, and I was going to work. I had a job. I was working. I graduated from university, and I taken a job, and I was going to work, and after, so I was like 22 or 21, and I thought, yeah, why not? Give up the job. What's the job? You can always find a new job. There's so many jobs. Anytime they can kick you out, So I gave up the job, and they gave me a new job in the temple. We were making incense, and that was how we supported the temple. Whatever income we had for the temple, it came from incense. The devotees in the USA, they had begun an incense factory. They called it Spiritual Sky Incense, and they had come to England, and they taught devotees there in England how to make the incense. So we were making that, and so they gave that to me. They said, you take charge of this incense business. So you had to purchase the different things to make the oil and the punks. We used to import the punk to make the incense. We'd import that from Hong Kong, and then we get the oil from the oil factories and make the incense, and we would distribute it to the shops and different places. In that way, we had some income for the temple. So that was helping to support the temple. So I was doing that that was my first service when I came to Krishna consciousness. So I was quite involved with the temple, trying to earn the money to maintain the temple. Krishna consciousness was very new in London, and we didn't have a congregation. There was no congregation to support us. Gradually, though, we could see 1 or 2 Indian people were helping us. Some Indian community was there, and they were taking an interest and helping a little bit. At that time, many people had come to England from Uganda and Kenya because there had been a problem there with there was someone, the man in charge of the country, put out the Asian people, you know, and they, because those were British colonies, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania were British colonies at one point. So people there had British citizenship. So they came, when they were put out of the Uganda and Kenya, they came to England. And that was a big help actually, because most of them were Gujarati. And Gujaratis are generally religious, pious people. Anyway, they came with nothing. They left Africa, they had to leave everything. They came to England and they worked hard and they established themselves. And later on, we got some of the, you know, they would be coming to our temple and their children would become devotees. They would come with their children, they bring their children to the temple. And then later on, when their children finished school and so on, they thought, why should I get a job and work better? I just join Hare Krishna. And they would become devotees. And so we had there's a number of nice devotees. And even the temple president of Bhakti.Vedanta Manor, previous temple, Shruti Dharma Prabhu, he was one of these boys who joined. And then now we have also one of the sannyasis there. It's from the Indian community. Born in London. So like that, it's had a, you know, a big help for our devotees there. And the Indian community, they support a lot because we have Bhakti.Vedanta Manor. Bhakti.Vedanta Manor, it's the Bhakti.Vedanta Manor for the, it was nice because we had this very place was so small and we had so many people joining. We had so many people living there and people were joining regularly, new to how to develop, how to accommodate everyone. It was quite difficult. So George Harrison, he timely purchased the Bhakti.Vedanta Manor, and that helped a lot. And Prabhupada liked that building. He stayed there in London, and he liked staying there in London. But Prabhupada's program at that time was to bring important people to meet him. He liked to meet different leaders, meet them and preach to them. And it was quite a successful program. Different people who were well known in the world, they would bring them to meet Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would talk to them and tell them about Krishna consciousness. There was one man, one Lord Mountbatten, relative of the royal family. So Prabhupada was speaking to him and Prabhupada was asking him about death. And so this Lord Mountbatten said, oh, time of death, well, we'll die peacefully. And Prabhupada laughed. He said, oh, really? You think you'll be peaceful at the time of death? Prabhupada thought it was quite amusing how this man thought he would die peacefully. And he said, actually, it's at the time of death, people are not usually peaceful unless you've properly prepared yourself for leaving the world. Then only you can be peaceful at the time of death. And of course, that is the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, how to prepare for death. Another person who came to meet Prabhupada was someone called Graham Hill. He was a motor racing driver. He had been a world champion in Formula One motor racing. So he came to meet Prabhupada and he was telling Prabhupada how sometimes when he would be driving the motor racing cars, sometimes you could feel yourself close to death. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is a fact. He said, actually, at every moment, we can be close to death. We don't know when death is going to come to us. So like this, Prabhupada was meeting these different people, discussing Krishna consciousness with them. This one girl I was telling you about, she was a pujari, Mundakini. Prabhupada had gone to Russia. He was anxious to go into Russia. And Shamsundar had arranged for Prabhupada to get some kind of visa to go there. And they had a contact with a professor in the University of Moscow, a Professor Katovsky. You can read the transcript of the lecture. It's in our Science of Self-Realization. Prabhupada talking to Professor Katovsky in Moscow. The professor was the head of Asian studies, but he did not believe in life after death. And he was saying at the time of death, Swamiji, everything is finished. And Prabhupada was telling him, that this is not fact. At the time of death, simply you're changing the body, you're going to take another body. The professor, because of his indoctrination into the Marx philosophy, he could not understand this, however. However, Prabhupada had the opportunity, he was there in Moscow for just a few days. So while they were there, Shamsundar, who was Prabhupada's secretary, had gone to look for some rice. To find rice in Moscow in those days was quite difficult. So he was looking for some rice, and he met two young men. One was an Indian young man, and do you have any Beatles music? They were in Russia, there were no Beatles music. They'd heard about it, but very difficult to get it. So they saw these two saw this Western man, music with you could give us, but I have the guru of the Beatles. So they were, their eyes lit up. They were surprised. They thought, yeah, can we come? We'd like to come and meet them. And he said, yeah, come on. And the Russian boy, he asked so many questions. And Prabhupada, in the course of a few days, Prabhupada every day spent time speaking to him and gave him Krishna consciousness and accepting his marriage. He said, I'll send you a nice European girl to be your wife. And so when he came to London, that French woman, the Mundakini there, he told her, you go to Russia and marry them. And this boy, this one young man who met Prabhupada, he spread Krishna consciousness all over Russia. Just practically on his own. He went everywhere and he introduced Krishna consciousness. They were persecuted. They were severely persecuted. They were put into mental hospitals and they were given drugs to destroy their brains. They did some very cruel things to them. And so they did suffer persecution for some time. But the Prabhupada had the one who went there to Russia and he began the preaching. He made the first devotee, initiated him, and And Prabhupada, he gave the example, he said, just, and if one grain is soft, you know, all the other grains are also soft. So he said the same way. He said, from this one Russian we're not a major religious force, but we are well known, and we do have many centers and many members all over Russia. And the Sikh came because Srila Prabhupada Swami, you should go there regularly and preach there. And down to today, Gopal Krishna Goswami does go there and preaches there. So Srila Prabhupada established that the devotees would preach everywhere because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had said, Prativiti Achiyat Nogar Adigram, right? The holy name would be chanted in every town and village, all over the distribute Krishna consciousness everywhere. So he had sent one of his very senior disciples, Brahmananda Prabhu, he'd sent him to Africa, and he had gone to Kenya. To preach there. Prabhupada went there, he saw that the devotees were only preaching to the Indian people there. And he said, I sent you to Africa to preach to the Africans. the devotees would come there and say, oh, Prabhupada, not very easy. No, but Prabhupada said, no, you have to do it. And Prabhupada went there and preached to the African people, encouraged them in Krishna consciousness. Interesting, when Prabhupada went there to Kenya, he was living according to Prabhupada to come and stay in their home, each house. That the Vedic culture is that you just, a sadhu comes to the home, they will just stay for 3 days. After 3 days, then they will move because it's. So Prabhupada was just staying 3 days in one house. After 3 days, he moved to another house and stayed 3 days, and then another 3 days, like this. This is the Vedic system. Prabhupada was teaching devotees so long in their homes. So Prabhupada went to Africa and he was preaching there in Africa and got the devotees to also preach to the African people. And Prabhupada was still apartheid. Prabhupada went to South Africa and he preached there in South Africa to the people. Prabhupada went to France, and when he went to in Paris, he began speaking to the French people. He said, your country is famous for revolution. You know the French Revolution? Maybe you've heard of, there's a famous novel in English, Tale of Two Cities, and it tells about the French Revolution. You know, the royal family, the Queen of France, they were not taking care of the citizens. The people in France were all starving with hunger. He said, they have no bread. Why don't they eat cake? So that was her reply. So when the people got that reply, when they heard that, that's when the revolution came up. And there is, they got the guillotine, the French system for capital punishment. They don't hang people, they chop off their heads. And so very famous, the French Revolution. So Prabhupada said to the people in France, he said, our Krishna consciousness movement is a revolution. He said, this is spiritual revolution, a peaceful revolution. We're bringing about a change. A revolution in consciousness. Before he departed from this world, he's ordered Tamal Krishna Goswami that he should go to China. Actually, Prabhupada told many devotees to go to China. But for people, there had been some trouble among the devotees. The trouble came, a little conflict between the grihastas and the sannyasis. So the grihastas were running the temples and so on, and they were traveling around in USA. We're talking about the field of preaching in USA. So 1970s, they had Tamal Krishna Goswami had gone to India and come back to USA. He was an American, and he came back to USA and he got involved with another American sannyasi named Vishnu Jana Swami. And they had a bus with deities which were called Radha Damodar. They were called Radha Damodar because they were in the bus, so they had to be tied in. Because the bus will shake sometimes, So the deities were tied in. So they thought this is Radha Damodar. So Tamal Krishna Goswami was involved with the Radha Damodar party, and they were traveling and distributing books. And Prabhupada was encouraging them to distribute more books because when they would distribute books, he would give the money to India, temple in Mayapur, and in Vrindavan, and in Mumbai. So Prabhupada couldn't get much money in India. In 1970s, he was books were giving the money. So there was some problem that they have to maintain also the temples. These devotees were traveling in the buses and they were distributing books, but the devotees staying in the cities, they sometimes between, where you go. If you go in this city, this is our city, and you can't come to our city. We are distributing books here. And then also if they have so if someone's a very successful book distributor, he would be a very valuable devotee because he bring in a lot of income for the temple. So that's important. You appreciate that man. It's valuable to the company, right? Books and bring back a lot of funds, they'd be very valuable to the temple. But sometimes the sannyasis would lure these good book distributors strangers to come and travel with them. You come and travel with us. You know, we're going other places. You can travel more. You'll visit more places. You'll see America more. You just stay in one city every day. It gets boring, you know, the same people every day. Better you come and join us. You come and travel with us. So like this, there was some problem created. So the different presidents of the temples, they came to Prabhupada and they told Prabhupada that the problem, that they're taking away our book distributors, we bring these people into Krishna consciousness, we make them devotees, and these people, these sannyasis come and take them away with them, and you know, we lose them. And so Prabhupada listened to the complaints and so he told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he gave him some certain restrictions that you can't do this, you can't do that. And so Tamal Krishna Maharaj was feeling quite frustrated. And he said, Prabhupada, I might as well go to China. And Prabhupada said, yes, very good idea. He said, go to China. That's what you should do. You go to China. And Tamal Krishna, no, Prabhupada, I didn't mean that. Tamal Krishna tried to get out of it, you know. But Prabhupada said, you said it. You said it. You should go. So like this, he put some big restrictions on Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He wanted him, don't create too much disturbance. You keep the peace. That's Prabhupada would always get along nicely with each other to create that harmonious mood. Prabhupada came to America, USA, and the devotees who joined the movement were nearly all young people. So many young people are joining your movement. So Prabhupada told him, he said, because that is the time for education. So Prabhupada answered the question very nicely, that they're coming to get spiritual education, an education which was not given to them in the material world, in their ordinary life. So I thought that was a very appropriate answer. Which Srila Prabhupada gave to the consciousness movement. Of course, 4 kinds of people who come to Krishna. Chatur Vida Bhajanti Mam Jnana Sukritino Arjuna. Arto Jitnasur Artharti Jnani Chabana consciousness. One in distress, one is in search of wealth, one is out of curiosity, and the other is in search of knowledge. So those 4 different reasons are there. A lot of common, they come in distress, will go away. And it's hoped that by the time the distress goes away, then the devotee comes more to the platform of knowledge. He's more appreciative of the knowledge, which distress may be there. In the beginning, the desire for wealth may be there, or curiosity. But as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, of the 4 kinds of people, the best one is the one who comes in search of knowledge. And those people who appreciate the knowledge which is there in Krishna consciousness, then once they come to Krishna consciousness, they don't go away. They don't give up, because they can see the highest knowledge, the best philosophy is there in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would say, of all sciences, the best science is philosophy. And the best philosophy is the Vedas. And in the Vedas, we have Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta Sutra is presented for us in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you read the Srimad Bhagavatam and you get the perfection of all knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada encouraged the devotees, all of us, that we must read his books regularly. I had an experience myself when I joined the movement. You know, I didn't really know anything. I read one small book and that brought me to the temple, and I was very interested in Krishna consciousness, but I didn't know anything. And so it happened that one day a reporter came to the temple, and I was just a very new devotee. I didn't know anything. And somehow this reporter was talking to me, and he was asking me questions about the movement. And I really didn't know anything. He asked me, "What is this AC Bhakti-Vedanta?" I don't know. I had no idea what AC. Anyway, he was talking to me, and I'd read a lot of Mayavadi philosophy before coming to Krishna consciousness, and in some of my Mayavadi philosophy. Like I remember when I first went to the temple, they asked me, "Do you know who God is?" I said, "Yeah, I'm God. You're God. We're all God." The philosophy I lived with, I was brought up with that philosophy. That was Mayavadi philosophy. Of course, later on, Prabhupada's mission was revealed. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. That Srila Prabhupada to Lord Chaitanya, which defeats impersonalism and voidism. And Prabhupada was particularly concerned in the Western world because he saw the influence of the West. Srila Bhakti said, because in the times of Bhakti said prominent. But Prabhupada didn't go to Europe. He went first to America. He went straight to the Big Apple, New York. The Big Apple, the rotten. But somehow Prabhupada went there to New York and he established Krishna consciousness there. And then later on, he sent the devotees to England and to Germany and all over Europe. So Srila Prabhupada very much wanted to establish Krishna consciousness in India. And the bulk of Srila Prabhupada's energy and time went into managing and overseeing the affairs in India. I had gone to America in 1973, and I wanted to be in USA because I could see that Krishna consciousness was much more developed in USA than in England. In England, we were struggling. We didn't have many senior devotees. We didn't know very much. But in USA, they were much more developed. So I came over to USA to spend some time there. And while I was there, I was asked to go to India because they needed to develop the preaching in India. Prabhupada wanted people from England to go to India because at that time it was difficult for Americans to get a visa to go to India. It was sometimes said that American devotees, they're all CIA agents planted in India to spy on India. You know, how ridiculous it seems, but that was the mode. So Prabhupada wanted people. So I came to India then in 1975, and of course it was really difficult. There was not much. Prabhupada had built the temple in Vrindavan. Krishna Balaram temple had been opened, and we were renting a small house in Delhi, little place. And similarly, we had a rented house in Calcutta, and in Bombay, they had bought the land up in Juhu, difficult situation. But somehow the preaching developed. Gradually things improved. More and more devotees came. Indian people joined our Krishna consciousness. See nowadays that they do have a lot of very intelligent young people who have joined the Krishna consciousness movement. There's a number of people who are IIT graduate temples now, and we have a lot of people who have taken shelter of the Krishna consciousness movement. We have things like base, which is a and also spiritual association. So a lot of young people, while they're studying, are given the opportunity to associate with devotees. So Prabhupada wanted that very much, that we would people bring them into Krishna consciousness, and then they can take over the leadership of the Krishna consciousness movement. And that's what's happening actually. The educated people are coming forward in the Krishna consciousness movement, planning out the future of the Krishna consciousness movement. Of course, there are challenges in everything. There are challenges. There are changes. We see changes in technology. In Srila Prabhupada's time, there were no computers and there were no mobile phones. Nowadays, people don't read hard copies so much. Everything is soft copy, right? So distributing books is something which has to be adjusted according to time and circumstances. One thing, in some ways, it's an advantage that more people can get the books freely. You can give everyone a soft copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Everybody has a mobile phone, so give them the Bhagavad Gita, put the Bhagavad Gita into their mobile phone. What to speak, they can have all Prabhupada's books in their mobile phone. So these are advantages for the preaching mission. A lot of changes are there also for example, prasadam distribution. Prabhupada encouraged the devotees. He didn't want us just simply to feed poor people. He said, prasadam is for everyone. He said, the rich people also need prasadam. So everyone, we have to think how to give them the opportunity to receive the mercy of Krishna in the form of spiritual foodstuffs. Certainly, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to distribute Krishna consciousness everywhere, to everyone. It's the nature of the Panchatattva that it said when Lord Krishna came, he brought with him a storehouse of love of God. But the contents walked. But then the Panchatattva came, they broke open the storehouse and they plundered the contents and they distributed it everywhere without considering who is qualified and who is not. They gave everyone the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the mercy of Lord Krishna. And it's distributed the more the supply. So Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to distribute more the mercy of Krishna. Prabhupada's vision was that in the future there will be high court judges with tilak. So Srila Prabhupada had very big vision for the Krishna consciousness movement. Of course, he always taught us, don't think small. With the temple. So someone said to him, why don't we just get a little piece, a little plot in the bazaar, and he said, make a place something like Radha which is quite small. But Prabhupada looked at him and said, I cannot think small. He said, I have to do something big. He said, what's the point? He said, what's the point of you being an American unless you do something wonderful? For Krishna. He wanted to do big things, very nice things. So spending some time in India during the lockdown in the last 3 years, I've seen how our centers have developed in India, and it's really a success story. The center developed very beautifully. In 1978, I was asked to be the temple president of Hyderabad. Prabhupada had opened the Hyderabad temple in 1976. So in 1978, they asked me to go there to be in charge of the temple. And at that time, the temple was quite basic. Although they'd opened the temple, it was very basic. We didn't even have doors on the front of the temple. You know, the temple was just the basic element. The deities were there, and altar was there, but there was a lot to be done. And so in the last year, I had the opportunity to go back to Hyderabad and see how nicely the temple had developed over the 40 years. The temple became very, very beautiful and expanded also. They expanded the premises and more marble decoration, more ornate marble carving, and the deity altars, very beautiful, have been replaced with new simhasans. Everything was very, very nicely improved, how it used to be. And not only that, but new temples had come up around. The one man wanted to do some service, so the devotee said, why don't you build a temple? And so this one man, he got land and he built a temple. That's just in a place called Attarpur, which is adjoining Hyderabad. And so we have new temples opening up out of nowhere, and just wonderful things going on all over India. Of course, there's still a lot to be done, but still, it was very encouraging to me to see how nicely the the movement is expanded in India and generally recognized by people as being very much bona fide. In the 1970s, people used to refer to the Krishna Balaram Mandir as the Angrezi Mandir. You know, we were all foreigners. The people in the temple were all Westerners. You know, we all had red noses, you know. So they called the temple the Angrezi Mandir. Nowadays, they don't say that because there's not so many Westerners there now. But we have a lot of local devotees. So that's very encouraging to see. How much people have accepted Krishna consciousness. We can see also how just in the last week or two, how the Prime Minister of the UK is a Hindu, and after his installation as the Prime Minister of England, he went to the Bhakti-Vedanta Manor, and he went as Prabhupada has his beautiful quarters there. So that it was very nice to see that he went there to the manor and he went to Prabhupada's room and sat in front of Prabhupada and offered prayers. So we expect to be a great success and do something for the British economy. Which needs some rejuvenation. So this is all to Prabhupada's credit. That's not like the plot, right? And so you can see Prabhupada, he went in like that. He went to America with nothing. He went on the boat, you know, with nothing, no money or anything. But now worldwide and his disciples are also continuing in the mode of Srila Prabhupada. Certainly, Srila Prabhupada wanted that his disciples would also write and that they would preach representing the Krishna consciousness movement. So I think Srila Prabhupada would be pleased if he would come today and to see the preaching which is going on. I think he would feel very happy to see how the devotees are endeavoring, even in sometimes very difficult situations, how the devotees are somehow making arrangements to come together and to preach and have Krishna conscious festivals and distribute Krishna consciousness far and wide. So I'm sure on this day of Prabhupada's disappearance, we remember Srila Prabhupada, and we pray that we can always remember Prabhupada, that he will always be with us and guide us. We certainly hope that we can do something to please Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked Tamal Krishna Goswami, he asked him, how many books have you distributed? How many devotees have you made? How many properties have you acquired? This is how Prabhupada would measure how much we're endeavoring, how much success we're having in our preaching of Krishna consciousness. It's not so easy things to do these days. Make devotees, with devotees, it's difficult to get people to completely dedicate themselves to Krishna consciousness. We have much more congregation devotees. But I see that the congregation devotees also do wonderful service. Sometimes people who are congregation are doing much more service than even people who are full-time devotees. We don't know how they do it. Somehow it's incredible that people who are working full-time jobs, and they have so many commitments, but still they manage to put so much energy into distributing Krishna consciousness and overseeing and organizing the activities of Krishna consciousness. So that is a great success. And we're very grateful to those devotees, and we offer our thanks to them. And we encourage all the devotees, please continue and think also how we can do more and how we can give pleasure to Srila Prabhupada. We want to keep Prabhupada in the center. Sometimes people argue that, oh, Prabhupada's not in the center. But I think Prabhupada is very much in the center of our Krishna consciousness movement. Every temple, every day we do Guru Puja for Prabhupada. It's very important for us to attend Guru Puja, Prabhupada's Puja. And we do also expect you to take the disciple course, and in the disciple course, we learn of the very important position of Srila Prabhupada in our Krishna consciousness movement. That he is the Diksha Guru for all of our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So on this day, this is a very important festival for all the devotees. That we all want to culture with Srila Prabhupada, Guru and our guide, because we are in Prabhupada's society and we are guided by Prabhupada's books and Prabhupada's teachings. Obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, and pray to keep us all together and keep us healthy in our Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Anybody?
It's wonderful. Memories of Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, in your association with Srila Prabhupada, anytime, any discussion about preaching in the British country? Or
No, I never had any discussion with Prabhupada, but
like this is. But anytime we discuss something about how to start preaching activities.
for example, Prabhupada said about preaching in China, because in 1970s China was closed, it wasn't possible to go in there. So he told Tamal Krishna, because he told Tamal Krishna, you go to China. So Tamal Krishna told Prabhupada that, China's closed, how am I going to go in there? So Prabhupada said to him, then you send my books there. He said, you send my books there, and my books will create the field. And this is what happened. This is how the Russian preaching developed, especially. They were sending a lot of books regularly. Of course, at that time, Germany was divided, East and West Germany. It was divided. There was a wall right down the middle of Germany. And so they were smuggling books into the Iron Curtain. It was called the Iron Curtain, Eastern Europe. So they got books in it. And we also got sent books to China. In the 1970s and 80s, most people were working in Hong Kong, and there was not much industry in China. Later on, China developed the industry. But in the 1970s and 80s, a lot of Chinese had come to Hong Kong, and they were all working and living in Hong Kong. And when it came to the Chinese holiday, like Chinese New Year, they would all go back to China. So there would be big queues of people all waiting for the train to go back to China. So we would all go to the train station and we would give out books, and we would just give the books free to them to take back to China. We give them Chinese books to take back to China. And sometimes people got the books and they were really impressed. One man got the book and he said, I want to help you spread this knowledge all over China. He was actually a Buddhist, but still he's very favorable, and he does help us. He's still alive and he does help us. And another man got the books, and he wrote on the wall, big sections of the book. He wrote it up on the wall, big sections right out of the book, you know. But he just loved it. He thought he never read anything like it before. It was so amazing. And similarly, in Eastern Europe, people would line up to get the books, and they would line up and they would purchase all the books. They wanted it because they'd never had this opportunity. They'd never had any of these, they'd never seen these books before. And the knowledge was so special. They understood it was so valuable that they lined up and they used all of their money to purchase as many books as they could. So these are some examples of how Prabhupada's books actually changed the face of these countries. Prabhupada explained, he said, just like in India, Russians never came there to India to spread communism. How did they spread communism into India? They sent books. They had books. People got books about Marxism and so on. And you had Bengal and Kerala probably still is communist. I don't know. But it came into India by books. So these communist countries strict censorship of what you're allowed to print and what's legal and what's not. We've had a lot of difficulties trying to print books in China. In Russia also, sometimes they just photocopy books, but they try to suppress our books because they know these books can really change people. Any other question? So we invite you all, go to Russia, go to China. Some preaching. Yeah.
In Arabic and some Arabic also we have Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, now we have Arabic Bhagavad Gita. Yes, right.
And some favorable locals probably we can distribute something. Possible.
Yes.
See the situation.
Yes. Prabhupada said he would take the here in these Arab countries. I had actually come here in Dubai. It was 1979. I came to Dubai, the Middle East, Dubai, 1979. We were trying to do something. Couldn't do much. And later on, we're happy to see more people taking up Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada appreciates the austerity, and he said he would take the dust from the feet from the devotees who preach here. So you can feel grateful for that. Okay, so now we will do Arti.